Hi everyone, my name's Katie McQueen and I'm a registered dietitian with the Center for Cardiac Fitness at the Miriam Hospital. Today we're going to be talking about different types of fats. Fat is an essential nutrient, meaning we do need to consume fat in our diet on a daily basis for certain bodily functions. Fat is involved in cell function. Fat provides energy towards our day. Every gram of fat provides 9 calories towards our daily energy intake. Fat is also involved in making important hormones and in the absorption of certain vitamins. Vitamins A, D, E, and K cannot be properly absorbed unless we have enough fat in our diet. Fat also is used to insulate our body and keep us warm. It is also stored in order to cushion and protect our organs. Today we're going to focus on saturated fats and unsaturated fats. But first, let's talk a little bit about trans fat. Artificial trans fat, aka partially hydrogenated oils, were banned from the food supply by the FDA in 2018. So you no longer are going to find partially hydrogenated oils on an ingredients list. They had to ban this ingredient because they found out that it was very, very harmful to our heart. There is some naturally occurring trans fat that can be found in small amounts in meat and dairy products. But because artificial trans fat has been banned, today we're going to focus on saturated fats and unsaturated fats. Saturated fats are solid at room temperature. These are the types of fats that increase our LDL cholesterol and increase our overall cardiac risk. Saturated fats can cause plaque buildup in our arteries, which increases our risk of heart attacks. Saturated fats primarily come from animal fats and tropical oils. So our land animals like beef, pork, lamb, venison, poultry, although these foods also have protein, if it is not a lean cut of this meat, then it is going to have more saturated fat in it. So the white marbling on steak, the skin on chicken and turkey, that is primarily saturated fat. So although these foods have protein, we can't ignore the fact that if they are a fatty cut, they will be high in saturated fat. So that's why we always want to make sure we're choosing lean protein sources. Also butter, lard, full fat dairy, whole milk, full fat yogurt, full fat ice cream, full fat cheese, and tropical oils such as coconut oil and palm oil are all going to be on the saturated fat list. Then we have unsaturated fats. These are liquid at room temperature, so think about how your extra virgin olive oil just pours on out. These can lower our LDL cholesterol. The primary oil we want to use when cooking is extra virgin olive oil, but any of the plant-based oils that are liquid at room temperature will be high in unsaturated fats. Also seeds, nuts, nut butters like peanut butter and almond butter, fish, avocado, and olives are also great sources of unsaturated fats. This chart shows the type of fat and its impact on blood cholesterol levels. So saturated fats increase total cholesterol and increase our LDL, which is our bad cholesterol. Unsaturated fats do the exact opposite. And then you'll see here omega-3s. These are a subcategory of unsaturated fats. They do decrease LDL, but another benefit is that they also decrease triglycerides. In some individuals, they may even increase HDL, which is our good cholesterol. How do I know how much fat is in a food? So foods are usually a mix of unsaturated and saturated fats, but we put them into the category of the predominant type of fat. So for example, something like olive oil, it does have 2 grams of saturated fat, but it's going to go in the unsaturated fat category because it has 12 grams of unsaturated fat. So it has much more of the heart healthy fat. You can tell how much fat is in a food by checking the nutrition label for anything that has a label. So you'll see the total fat section, and then indented underneath, you'll see the saturated fat. The trans fat is also there, but that's going to be a 0, as I said, that we now have a trans fat ban. If you would like to figure out how much unsaturated fat is in your food, it is the difference between the total fat minus the saturated fat. So for this example on the left, if the total fat is 8, if the saturated fat is 1 and the trans fat is 0, then the unsaturated fat is 7 grams. Companies are not required to list out the unsaturated fat, but you can figure it out by doing the math. Now looking over here on the right, This is an example of olive oil, and this company did choose to list out the unsaturated fats. So companies can provide that information if they want, and you'll typically see this on oils or peanut butter because those products, the companies want to showcase the fact that they have a high amount of healthy fats. So a lot of people want to know how many grams of fat they can have each day. So these are the general guidelines, which are based on how many calories somebody eats in a day. So it's 20 to 35% of your total calories. This includes all types of fats. So saturated and unsaturated fats fall into this guideline. So for example, if you ate 2,000 calories per day, your total fat grams would be 45 to 78 grams of fat per day. So if you were trying to lower your lipid levels, you probably would aim for the lower side of that. But again, this is all types, the healthy types too. I think it's more important to focus on limiting the saturated fat versus using your energy to count all fat. So let's go to the next slide and see how much saturated fat we should limit to a day. Saturated fat guidelines. The American Heart Association recommends limiting saturated fats to less than 6% of total calories. So I've provided that number for various calorie amounts. The problem is most people don't even know how many calories they take in a day. And some of these numbers on this chart are very, very low and hard to achieve, especially if somebody was on a lower calorie eating plan, like say 1,500 calories a day. An allotment of 10 grams of saturated fat can go very quickly when you start seeing how much saturated fat is in our food. But for most of us, I think a good goal is just to try to stay under 15 grams of saturated fat for the day. If we're focusing on staying under 15 grams of saturated fat for the day, then it's really important that we recognize how much saturated fat is really in our food. So a cup of regular ice cream can have 10 grams of saturated fat. This can vary by brand, so always check the label. A great substitute for regular ice cream would be a non-fat frozen yogurt or a Yasso Greek yogurt bar. Then you'll see here we have butter. 1 tablespoon of butter is 7 grams of saturated fat. Keep in mind that there's 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon. So if you used a teaspoon of butter, that would only be about 2.5-ish grams of saturated fat. But again, it adds up quickly. If you're putting butter on your toast and you're putting it on your grilled cheese and then you're putting it on your veggies or your chicken at dinner, it's going to add up quickly and make it really hard to stay within the saturated fat guidelines. A great substitute for butter is using extra virgin olive oil or using avocado oil for high heat cooking. 1 cup of whole milk, 5 grams of saturated fat. We have a lot of alternatives to this, such as low fat or skim cow's milk, or almond or oat milk, or another plant-based milk of your choice. We do want to avoid coconut milk, as coconut is higher in saturated fat. 8 ounces of prime rib, 18 grams of saturated fat, so more than a day's worth of saturated fat. So that's why we want to be choosing more salmon, lean chicken, vegetarian meals. A tablespoon of coconut oil, 12 grams of saturated fat. So we don't need to be cooking with coconut oil. We can use our liquid plant oils. And 1 ounce of cheese, 6 grams of fat. So you can use reduced fat cheese. You can do ultra thin cheese, and it will cut down on the saturated fat because it's a thinner piece. And we also just want to look at the frequency that we're eating cheese. If we're adding it to every meal, if we're having multiple slices, the saturated fat content is really going to add up over the course of the day. Here you'll see some heart-healthy types of fat. So in the image in the top left, we have some nuts, seeds, salmon, and avocado. I'm also showing over on the right some avocado mini cups. These cups are great because you always have a ripe avocado on hand, and these are perfectly portioned to throw into a lunch bag, bring to work with you, bring on a picnic. I'm also showing some unsalted nuts, some extra virgin olive oil, chia seeds, unsalted peanut butter, and a creamy almond butter. As I mentioned previously, there is a type of unsaturated fat called omega-3, and this specific type of unsaturated fat has additional health benefits. It can lower lipid levels and lower blood pressure. Omega-3s reduce cancer risk. They reduce symptoms of asthma. They're great for our eye health, our brain health. They reduce dementia. Omega-3s are helpful for mental health, such as depression, and also for diabetes. There are two categories of omega-3 fatty acids. One is alpha-linolenic acid, which is ALA. This is a plant-based omega-3 that is found in flax seeds, chia seeds, and walnuts. There's also the marine-based omega-3s, which are the EPA and the DHA. The EPA and DHA is found in salmon, herring, sardines, mackerel, trout. The American Heart Association recommends consuming about 1 gram per day of the EPA and DHA. That's for the cardiac benefit. So the plant-based ones from chia seeds, flax seeds, those are also very healthy for us and will offer great health benefits. But for the cardiac benefits specifically, we do need to eat the fatty fish, which is why we recommend eating fish 2 times per week or more. This chart here comes from the Office of Dietary Supplements and shows us the amount of each type of omega-3 in various food options. So you can just pause here and check this out. So now that we've learned the different types of fats, let's pause here and talk about different substitutes that you could make in your daily life. So first of all, with your milk, if you're consuming whole milk, you can switch that to a low-fat cow's milk or a plant-based milk. You can switch from full-fat cheese to reduced fat or thin cheese, full-fat yogurt to low-fat or fat-free yogurt, ice cream to frozen yogurt or Yasso bars, or just another nighttime treat. Fatty cuts of meat could be replaced with fish. Salami, pepperoni, and bologna could be replaced with no salt added turkey slices. Butter and lard can be replaced with avocado oil, olive oil, plant-based vegetable spreads. Poultry with skin could turn into skinless poultry. Fried foods can be then baked, grilled, broiled, steamed, or air fried instead of deep fried. And of course, we can eat lots of foods that are just naturally low in saturated fat, such as fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and avocados. And lastly, I leave you with this image, the facts on fat from the American Heart Association. You'll see here on the left, it's saying to love it. Those are our unsaturated fats. In the middle, you'll see limit it. Those are our saturated fats. And on the right, you'll see lose it, artificial trans fat, which is now banned by the FDA, hydrogenated oils, and tropical oils. Thanks for listening.